inspiration in general kind of comes from literature, music, dance, fashion, that they all are completely interconnected.
In general, my source of inspiration comes a lot from the streets.
So my inspiration tends to come from like things that are a little bit scientific or sculptural.
My inspiration comes from architecture, but in my senior collection I wanted to have a little bit of historical approach to it.
I'm inspired by whims, basically. If I see something I'm interested, I just investigate it more.
I don't really look for inspiration, like something just kind of comes to me.
For my inspiration, I usually use, for the most part, just different types of nature and just stuff around me.
I have a poetry and a digital graphics background, so I really am inspired by words and writing.
I write and I make clothes and I draw and I paint, and so usually all of the context of my work is concerning the same thing.
I'm just going to carry it out like this.
When's your footing? 11, but he's running late, so. Who's your footing? Igor. Oh.
The clothes that I'm making for the show this year are based on Shakespearean characters. So my first inspiration was to kind of take this relationship between male and female characters that exists in most literature, definitely in Shakespearean characters, where women kind of feel oppressed and victims of the situation, when really they have much more power than they're led to believe. In Shakespeare, I think most of his female characters are much more powerful than their male counterparts. They just don't know it. I have Lady Macbeth, which I'm working on now. Hamlet is the gold one. Juliet is the pink one. Othello's the big black outfit, and then I have an Ophelia that's not here right now. So those were my 5 characters, because as a senior you get to pick 5 pieces for the show.
My specific senior collection deals with domestic violence victims and their stories, and I think it's one of the most relevant issues today, and I think people ignore it a lot, and so I really wanted to do something to make a statement. And this isn't clothing for victims, it's not like costumes for victims, it's art on the body inspired by artists. And as I was doing this, I read a lot of stories about what would happen to people and like why they stuck, in places. And all the text you see is reasons why people stay in these relationships. All the knotting in this dress symbolizes how people feel knots in their stomach and how they're trapped. And also on the men's pants, you can see I have a lot of that too. I'm really proud of this collection. I'm really proud that I did something that I really can look back and be proud of and that might inspire people.
The novel The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. In the book, it's like kind of a dual inner monologue of the main character and then of what is actually historic events of what's going on in the book. And just, it's kind of about moral decay and like all these bad things that are happening. He's going into the heart of darkness, which is actually the Congo. And the author talks about like the good and bad within people and the morality based off the symbolism of color, black and white. And so my entire like color story is based off of black and white, and then the gray, moral, kind of like wishy-washiness that's in between is like color piecing.
Well, it started off when I went to Argentina. The mixture of culture there was really interesting, between the architecture and like the people. I'd be walking down the street and see these like amazing buildings, and like they're so beautiful, like like just the detailing and the constructions, but then there'd be like graffiti, like not just like tagging or anything, but like in-depth graffiti, and it was like amazing stuff. And I was just like started to think of mixing these cultures, like like what kind of people do this graffiti, and then what kind of people live in these homes.
I took an Art Nouveau class. That's how I found out that Frank Lloyd Wright was looking at Japanism, like the turn of the century, hokusai prints, and 18th century Japanese interiors. And I'm really interested in these vung vung masks, which are from the Baining people of New Britain, so I'm probably going to design a collection out of that.
I was looking at really close-up images of patterns found in nature. This specific collection pulls a lot from that, like patterns and textures found in nature, and then replicating them really graphically through fabric manipulations, and doing it like graphically by just having like a monochromatic scheme of just like black, white, gray, and silver, instead of using like the more expected colors of like brown and green.
A lot of what I concentrate on isn't like avant-garde pattern making or formal exploration of what clothes is. It's more like interesting embellishment and kind of thematic choice of materials and things like that. I really like fabrication and embellishment and decoration, as you can probably tell by my clothes. I try to be very meticulous with the way I cut my clothes out, try to match plaids, match patterns really carefully. I like making things like tiny and perfect, and like my Juliet costume, the big pink dress, I wanted her to look kind of like a little precious commodity, kind of like how her parents would see her in the play. So I wanted her to kind of look like a Fabergé egg or kind of a ballerina doll or something very precious.
I should say first that throughout the collection, if you take a look, the color story has to do with the blooming lotus. And the blooming lotus is a sign of spiritual development and involvement. So the collection kind of goes from that perspective, like moving from one place to another, opening your mind and opening up yourself. And so it's really about an experience. And I feel like that's kind of what school is all about. So the Ruby character she's a fortune teller, she's all about wisdom, she's all about opening herself to other people and helping and giving, etc. Another character is kind of this like nun artist type who she was kind of on the dark side, and the dark side essentially just being the human side and being artistic and giving into society and just kind of debauchery, etc.
I knew I wanted to costume Alice in Wonderland because it's a recognizable story, and I wanted to set it in a post-apocalyptic setting because it has a lot of room for crazy, maverick, adventuresome play. You know, I really wanted my models to have fun modeling these costumes, and I think they really did. This is Alice from Alice in Wonderland. I wanted her to look a little bit like a warrior and a little bit like a crazy adventurer, and also reference the girlhood, childhood. My concept for the caterpillar specifically was that I wanted him to look like a crazy biomorphic, post-nuclear, messed up sort of creature, like a, you know, anthropomorphic being. They're army surplus suspenders. The coat's made out of denim, so it's actually pretty heavy. It probably weighs about 30 pounds. The bones are chicken bones, and there's Victorian vintage hardware on the front of the outfit.
The fashion industry is such a crazy monster. It's hard to predict where it's going to go.
I think it's hard to say where the industry is going because, you know, everything is getting so much more global and everything is kind of relating, and we're getting influences from Asia and Africa, and there's so many different styles and there's so many people trying to develop their own lines and trying to be unique that I don't see fashion going in a particular direction. I think it's just spreading out. I think we're taking influences from everywhere and just doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it.
It's hard. As someone who doesn't define themselves necessarily as a fashion designer, but also as a costume designer and kind of an artist, it's been a little bit hard to find my way as far as knowing where to go now.
I actually have 2 internships right now set up for New York, Kenneth Cole and Alice and Olivia.
I want to get back to reading and drawing and doing things on my own time that are not project-based. I would love to exhibit some of my work in a gallery. That would be my ideal.
Well, I have a job, which is, I can't believe.
I would like to just venture out in the industry and learn more business aspect of it.
I have an internship this fall with the Tony Award-winning Broadway costume designer William Ivy Long in New York City.
Well, I've got an internship for this summer, so I've got that set, but I don't know, I want to be able to maybe open my own line in a couple years.
I've actually already started a collection, so starting to produce some of that and just kind of see where it goes from there.
I guess I'm looking for a job right now, but I can style, I can sell, I've been a buyer, I can design, I could go anywhere.